Happy New Year, strangers. I just want to say before I jump into today's story that I'm so grateful for all of you. If you've been a listener for a while, thanks for sticking around. If you're brand new, welcome. I always love hearing from my strangers, whether that's on Instagram or through email. So many of you have sent really encouraging and supportive messages, and I'm thankful for each one. And today, especially for the snail mail letter I got from listener David Donaldson. Thank you so much, David. Your letter was so thoughtful and kind. I'm way behind in replying to emails, but I'm getting there. And unless you wrote in to tell me I'm a misandrist or some other such nonsense, I will reply. For those of you who joined us over on Supporting Cast, thanks so much for the extra support. It really does help keep the show going in a material way. And if you haven't joined and want to, here's your reminder. And if you don't want to join, that's cool too. Subscribing, downloading, and listening is awesome. I do also want to acknowledge for my subscribers that I was doing Strange News for a minute last year, which I know you all really liked. And then I just stopped doing it. The main issue was that I had to edit and engineer Strange News myself, and it was eating into my time to work on actual episodes. I'm doing this thing where I'm really trying to avoid using AI for anything, so I was pretty much editing without AI, and it took too long. Contrary to popular belief, Strange and Unexplained is a very small machine. I have a couple of researchers, Joe Gordette and Keely Hayes, and sometimes Becky Berger. Occasionally, my good pal Eve Kerrigan writes drafts of episode scripts. My former producer, Becca DiGregorio, is back on the team doing research, organization, and editing. I have an amazing audio engineer, Jeff Devine. And Amanda Rossman, one of my partners at my network Grab Bag Collab, does the busy work of placing ads, uploading episodes and descriptions, sponsorship information, and social media posts. That's it. That's the team. Each script is about 6,500 words these days to accommodate the ads I'm contractually obligated to run. That's an astounding amount of work. Not to pat myself on the back or anything, but that's more than 3 novels worth of writing per year. So just know that my itty-bitty team and I are always hard at work to make this show. Lastly, if you'd like me to do another Ask Me Anything, please head to strangeandunexplainedpod.com and fill out the contact form with your question. Just make sure to let me know it's for the AMA. As soon as I have enough questions, I'll do another Ask Me Anything. And that's it. Enjoy the show. Stranger, how come I've never seen a ghost? What's wrong with me? Am I not open enough? Do I not believe enough? Am I just too cynical? When will it be my turn? And, small caveat, can it please be a cuddly ghost and not a mean one? Welcome to Strange and Unexplained with me, Daisy Egan. I have a few friends who have had or regularly have encounters with entities from elsewhere. Full-bodied apparitions who have sent messages. Inexplicable indentations in the bed, even regular visits during dreams. But not me. I have a mother who's been dead for 32 years, and not only has she never shown up at the end of my bed and assured me that everything was okay, but I rarely even dream about her. And when I do, she's basically like, stop making such a big deal that I'm back. Rude. I feel like I'm a good candidate for a light haunting because I have this platform and I think I've established myself as relatively skeptical enough that if I did have an experience with a ghost, I could spread the good word. I don't know, maybe they just don't like the cut of my jib. Fair enough, I suppose. The same, it seems, could not be said for Debra Pickman, whose jib appealed to at least one ghost and still does to this day. Debra and Tony Pickman were starting their lives together as a family when they moved into a beautiful old Victorian at 508 North 2nd Street in Atchison, Kansas on New Year's Eve of 1992. Debra was a homemaker and Tony worked at a grain elevator. Debra was pregnant with her first child, and I'm sure the house seemed like a picturesque little dream of a family home. Within the first few weeks of settling in, the couple started noticing overhead lights flickering or dimming on their own. It wasn't anything alarming. It was the kind of stuff you'd expect to happen in an old-ass house with an old-ass electrical system. But it happened frequently enough that Tony finally said, "We must have a ghost." LOL, except that the anomalies with the lights stopped after that. Like a ghost was in the process of messing with the lights, got caught, and was like, oop. For about a week, the couple's dog Sasha would stand in the room that was to become the nursery and just growl and bark at nothing. The couple noticed cool air flowing down the stairs from the top floor, which made no sense. There was nowhere from which the air could have been coming. It was January. They didn't have windows open, and it's not like they were running the air conditioner. And then, in March, Debra later recounted, quote, "I was abruptly awakened from a sound sleep by what sounded like blood-curdling screams, then several loud, quick thumps coming down the stairs. Before I was able to sit up or have any coherent thoughts, something heavy struck my body and face," end quote. This, and pretty much the whole story, come from the book Debra wrote in 2010 called The Sallie House Haunting, a True Story. Debra's scream woke Tony up, who immediately began screaming too, because that is what you do when your partner wakes you up screaming in the middle of the night. You just start screaming back, which is, in retrospect, pretty funny. And after searching the house for anything amiss and re-regulating, they both, indeed, laughed it off. Later, she would tell herself that the screaming she heard was likely one of the cats falling down the stairs and then somehow hitting her from above. Now, look, I've never heard of a bed being directly at the bottom of a flight of stairs. In order for this to make sense, the cat would have had to have fallen down the stairs and then run into the bedroom and get high up enough to then fall on Debra. In the weeks leading up to the birth of the Pickmans' first child, the kitchen appliances started acting up. The timer on their brand new oven would change itself frequently, tick through the numbers really fast, or go off at random. It happened so much, apparently, that Debra just started ignoring it. Debra gave birth to a baby boy she named Taylor in late June 1993. The couple had trouble deciding on decor for the baby's room. Debra wrote, quote, "We had tried for months to choose a theme that would be perfect for the room, but had found it very difficult. Then, after the baby was born, for reasons unknown to us, we decided on an even representation of pale pink and baby blue," end quote. I mean, those are pretty popular baby colors. This doesn't strike me as particularly weird, unless you consider how obsessed some people are with assigning gender to colors, in which case, maybe they themselves were surprised by their choice of putting pink in the baby's room. When I was pregnant, I posted a picture of a cherry tree decal I put on the wall next to the crib, and someone commented that they were thinking of putting up the same decal, but they didn't know if they were having a boy or a girl. Folks, it's a tree. When I looked up reviews of the convertible car seat I wanted, which was brown and pink, like a cherry tree, one review said, "Don't worry, it's not that girly. My husband is comfortable pushing the stroller in public." Honestly, people, what are we doing? We are made of stardust. Anyway, maybe Debra and Tony considered themselves strict adherents to the color by gender rule and were so surprised when they decided to put pink in the boys' room that they told themselves it must have been a ghost that made them do it. Strangers, thinking about a wardrobe refresh? Quince has you covered with luxe essentials that feel effortless and look polished. They're perfect for layering, mixing, and building a wardrobe that lasts. Their versatile styles make it easy for you to reach for them every day, day after day. The quality shows in every detail. The stitching, the fit, the fabrics, every piece is thoughtfully designed to be your new wardrobe essential. I have all my Mongolian cashmere sweaters from Quince in heavy rotation this winter. They are warm and they look great. Throw one on under a blazer, and I'm winter chic, rocking that hot history professor vibe. My kid loves their sheets from Quince, soft and silky and cozy. And of course, I can't live without my cashmere beanie. Like everything from Quince, each piece is made with premium materials in ethical, trusted factories, then priced far below what other luxury brands charge. Plus, Quince has all kinds of home and kitchenware and even luggage. And it's all going to cost you so much less than you'll find anywhere else, all for great quality and lasting style you can feel good about. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Don't wait. Go to quince.com/strange for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/strange to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/strange. After Taylor was born, the couple's phone service got really spotty. Remember, this was 1993, so we're talking landlines. Apparently, the interruption in service happened most frequently in the nursery, which begs the question, why do you have a phone in the nursery? But you do you. Taylor had trouble sleeping in the crib. When Tony's sister came to visit, she brought Taylor down to sleep with her, and he went right to sleep. This, to me, just sounds like normal baby behavior. Babies are notoriously finicky about sleep and generally like to be held. I was colicky as a baby and cried for hours. I had to be held and walked around in order to go to sleep. Actually, I'm going to say I wasn't colicky. I was super pissed to have been reincarnated, and I was crying because I wanted to be put back into the cosmic consciousness for good. But then, one day, while Tony was vacuuming in the nursery, he encountered something he couldn't explain away. Quote, "Suddenly, Tony came bursting into the room. He said that while he was vacuuming, the teddy bear mobile started playing and turning. I told him about how the new baby monitor worked. One of its special features was if the baby cried for more than a minute or any other loud noise was generated for the same amount of time, the monitor would play a lullaby in an attempt to soothe the baby back to sleep. I assured him the vacuum had probably set off the monitor. With great conviction, he informed me that it hadn't been because of the vacuum. Tony had actually seen the mobile turning. He adamantly explained to me that the mobile had rotated several times while playing its tune. He had not set it off by bumping the crib because he was nowhere near the crib when he saw the movement." End quote. I get that Tony was spooked. It's definitely spooky when shit starts to move seemingly on its own, but I did some internet sleuthing, and Lord knows I'm no crack internet sleuther, but I'm pretty sure there weren't any motion sensor baby monitors in 1993. There certainly weren't any motion sensor baby monitors that were connected to motorized mobiles. It's far more likely that it was a wind-up mobile and the vacuum cord brushed up against the crib enough to knock the last bit of wind-up from it. You know how sometimes when you move a wind-up music box, sometimes it will tinkle out the last few notes? I'm willing to bet that's what happened here. Everybody chill. But then, one afternoon, Tony found Debra in the kitchen and asked her why she'd put all the stuffed animals on the floor in the middle of the room in the nursery. Debra was like, "What are you talking about, Willis?" and went up to see what he was talking about, Willis, and there, on the floor, sat all the stuffed animals she had definitely placed on various shelves around the room earlier that day, now sitting squarely on the floor in the middle of the room. Apparently, Tony's sister-in-law Karen had been visiting, so Tony and Debra asked her if she had for some reason moved all the stuffed animals onto the floor of the nursery. Karen was like, "I wasn't going to say anything, but something is not right in that room." She said she'd been in the room earlier and felt a cold, uneasy sensation settle around her, and she GTFO'd. Debra, Tony, and Karen bravely faced the situation head-on. Debra wrote, quote, "We put the stuffed animals back in their places, and Tony turned out the light. We stood for a moment in the hallway looking back into the room, trying for one last time to assure ourselves that everything was fine. We descended the stairs. When we reached the bottom of the stairs, Karen glanced back up. When her eyes reached the top of the stairs, she noted in a loud, monotone voice, 'The light in the nursery is back on.' She turned quickly to Tony, who had just passed the threshold of the living room, and asked, 'I thought you turned out the light.' 'I did,' he replied. His head tilted quizzically to one side, and his eyes were wide. We emerged at the top, peered into the room. then stood there motionless for what seemed like a dreadfully long time, staring into what should have been a tranquil room. On the floor in the middle of the room, face up on the floor, lay the small, scruffy teddy bear." End quote. It was the Great Teddy Bear Incident of 1993 that convinced the Pickmans they had a ghost on their hands. And they figured the ghost was either a child or a maternal woman, I guess because it liked to mess around in the nursery. Now, when one suspects they have a ghost roaming around the house, it's best to confirm one's suspicions before calling the local Catholic diocese and asking for a priest to come bless the place. Priests are very busy, what with the whole trying to keep a notoriously cranky god in good spirits. That guy has issues. You can't just call them any time a teddy bear is out of place. So Tony and Debra asked Tony's brother Larry to come by and check things out. Larry was a skeptic, so they figured if anyone could find a logical explanation for the weird things going on, it would be Larry. Larry came by and was like, "Yeah, no, I can't explain this shit." But, luckily for everyone, his boss's sister might be able to. Barbara, Tony's brother's boss's sister, just in case you're keeping track, was a psychic. And wouldn't you know, she just happened to be in town visiting Tony's brother's boss. Tony's brother's boss relayed what he'd heard from Tony's brother, and just based on that, Barbara was like, "Oh yeah, you have a ghost." According to Debra, quote, "She said she felt we had the spirit of a young girl between 5 and 13 years old. She also felt the little spirit not only liked the house and felt comfortable there, but was protecting a baby." End quote. Barbara thought the spirit was just being playful by moving stuff around and like, ha ha, fun, but also put that shit back. Don't go making more work for others. Barbara thought it likely that baby Taylor could see the spirit, and she was pretty sure the spirit's name was Sallie. For some reason, Barbara didn't relay this information directly to the Pickmans, but instead had her boss's employee, Tony's brother, Larry, relay it to them for her. Larry told Debra and Tony that per Barbara's instructions, they should tell the ghost that she was welcome to stay with them, but that she would have to behave. According to Debra's account, quote, "She could play with the toys, but she had to put them back when she was done. We were also instructed to make it clear that this was our house, and if she wanted to stay with us, she would have to follow our rules." End quote. Apparently, Tony's mother knew the previous tenants of the house, who told her their son, whose bedroom was the Pickman's nursery, was always being scolded for leaving his toys all over the place, despite insisting he hadn't been playing with the toys. Their daughter often complained of a foul odor in the house that I guess no one else could smell, and oh yeah, now that you mention it, she had an imaginary playmate who lived in her closet named Sallie. Ever since they'd moved out of the house, the girl had not brought up Sallie. The Pickmans followed Barbara's advice and told Sallie she could stick around as long as she didn't act like a little rascal. But, of course, as the old saying goes, don't invite a cheeky ghost to stay in your house unless you're prepared to put out some fires. Strangers, we have a new sponsor. If 2026 is your year to feel stronger, eat smarter, or simplify the dinner routine, ButcherBox delivers the good stuff. High-quality proteins with no antibiotics, no added hormones, and no mystery labels. Just the kind of clean fuel that supports actual results. Trying to get your nutrition and your budget aligned this year? ButcherBox delivers high-quality protein at incredible value, including family faves your kids will actually eat with zero grocery store chaos required. We had a delicious bottom round roast the other night. So yummy. I made incredible chicken soup from the boneless chicken thighs, and you can customize your box if, like me, you don't eat pork, for example. And with everything delivered right to my door, it couldn't be easier. If you like to cook like I do, ButcherBox is a great way to go. For over a decade, ButcherBox has led the industry with meat and seafood that's antibiotic-free, hormone-free, and independently verified. It's the clean, trustworthy protein you want to be eating, especially at the start of a new year. As a certified B Corp, ButcherBox is committed to doing things right, from how the animals are raised to how their team supports workers and reduces environmental impact. Plus, every box ships free, always, and members get access to recipe inspiration, tips, and exclusive deals that make every meal easier, healthier, and more enjoyable. As an exclusive offer, new listeners can get their choice between filet mignon, New York strip, or chicken breast in every box for a year, plus $20 off when you go to butcherbox.com/unexplained. That's right, your choice of filet mignon, New York strip, or chicken breast in every box for an entire year, plus $20 off your first box and free shipping, always. That's butcherbox.com/unexplained. Don't forget to use our link so they know we sent you. About a month after Taylor was born, Debra's bestie George was hanging out in the house when Tony aimed their camera at a teddy bear on the couch, a different teddy bear than the one in the nursery, I think, and said, "Sallie, if you're in here, smile and say cheese." And just after the shutter clicked, George yelled, "It moved! The goddamn thing moved!" Debra recounted in her book, quote, "Although I'm sure he wasn't ready for the truth, he got what he had been looking for. He had just been witness to paranormal activity occurring right before his eyes. In fact, he reported that he actually saw the bear do an about-face in roughly the same instant that Tony snapped the photograph. As George shouted, Tony quickly snapped off another shot. Tony and George were struck with terror when they realized what they had witnessed." End quote. For some reason, this was enough to drive the Pickmans out of the house, at least temporarily. They decided to get out of Dodge for a while. As they were packing, Tony thought he'd been bitten by a bug or something on his back. It was painful enough that he yelped out in pain, but apparently the couple was in such a hurry they didn't bother to investigate. When Debra did get around to inspecting the bite, quote, "To my surprise, I found 3 bleeding scratch marks, each about 5 or 6 inches long, running down the center of his lower back." Debra swore she was with Tony when he'd felt the bite, and there was no way he'd inflicted the marks on himself. While they were away from the house, Debra reached out to Barbara directly to see if she could get some information or guidance about Sallie. Barbara told her that Sallie could go anywhere she pleased. Quote, "She can be crawling on the ceiling or hovering over your bed," end quote. "Like the dead baby from Trainspotting? No thank you." Barbara said she didn't get any bad feelings about Sallie and that she was just moving things around to let them know she was there. Barbara felt strongly that Sallie's intention was not to harm anyone, and Debra was like, "Tell that to Tony, who has these scratches down his back." To which Barbara said Sallie probably misinterpreted Tony's terror at the teddy bear having turned itself around and thought he was going to harm Taylor, so she attacked him to protect the baby. I mean, okay. Barbara told Debra to go have a serious heart-to-heart with Sallie and tell her not to fuck with her husband. Debra was like, how do I know when the invisible ghost is in the room? To which Barbara replied, quote, "You call to her just like you would call any other child in the house. You tell her, 'Sallie,' if that's what you call her, 'we are angry and need to have a talk with you. So you get in here right now. And don't worry, she'll come. Give her a few minutes to come to where you are. Then tell her you are very angry and that what she did was very wrong. You and Tony are that baby's parents. You need to take care of his physical needs, and she is not to interfere. Tell her if she hurts anyone again, she will be punished." End quote. Which begs the question, how does one go about punishing a ghost? Debra had the same question. Quote, "You might send her to her room and tell her to stay there for a while. You could tell her she can't play with a particular toy or object." End quote. I just want us all to picture this for a moment. You're sitting there talking to the air, and you're like, "You can stay here, but you have to be nice." For all you know, the ghost is flipping you the bird and telling you where you can stick it, and you're like, "Thank you so much for listening, I'm glad we can get along." She's full-on Linda Blairing you, and you're looking 2 feet to the left of her, telling her to be a good girl and go play with the baby. Naturally, Debra was like, "What if this doesn't work?" And Barbara told her that if worse came to worst, there were other ways to get rid of her. They could call a priest, or they could go around chanting some anti-ghost propaganda in the house, or she could be exorcised, both of which Barbara said she could help them with. When the Pickmans got back home, they did as Barbara instructed, and Debra claims the cats watched the conversation between her and Sallie as though there was another person there responding to her. Of course, the cats could have just been looking at the empty spot to which Debra was speaking and being like, "Who the fuck are you talking to?" But then, the pull chain on the ceiling fan, which was off, started swinging around on its own. The next day, Debra and George headed to wherever city records were kept to try to piece together the history of the house. The house had been built in 1872 on land purchased by one Kate Finney that same year. I don't know how or why a woman was allowed to purchase land, unless Kate used to be one of those names like Leslie or Meredith or Marion that people gave to boys before they decided, for some arbitrary reason, that the names were too girly. Fun fact, John Wayne's real name was Marion. Could you imagine? Anyway. The home stayed in the Finney family into the 20th century. At some point, Dr. C.C. Finney turned the house into a rental property. And then the Finney family sold the home in 1946. Debra and George could find no Sallies with a Y or Sallies with an IE that ever lived in the house in the initial search. They could find no evidence that a child had died in the house at all. Coming up empty-handed, they expanded their search parameters. They combed through obituaries and birth and death records looking for any young girl who died between the late 1800s and mid to late 1900s. Debra and George found records of 5 or 6 Sallies, as well as about 3 other deaths that fit the parameters but did not have name, age, or gender listed. They then narrowed those names down. The most likely option seemed to be one Sallie Isabel Hall, who died in 1905. Her family was a black family who lived within a few blocks of the Finney home. Debra supposed that someone in the family could have worked for the doctor. However, she did have to concede that there were no records of a Sallie living in the home or dying there. Although I will say, looking through my family's records, there is one census that shows a random young girl living in the household at some point in the early 1900s. No one knows who she is. My guess is she was just a friend who happened to be in the house when the census was taken, as in how many people are currently in your home. So anything is possible. Strangers, sometimes I think about having to make dinner and I want to banish myself on an ice floe in Alaska. It's every day? No one told me it was going to be every day. And that's why I absolutely love Tavala's smart oven meals. With Tavala, all the thinking about dinner is done for me, so all I have to do is the lightest of light prep, pop it in the oven, scan the recipe card, and walk away. 20 minutes later, I have a hot, delicious, nutritious, healthy meal. Sink full of dishes? I don't think so. Just dinner and no worries. The takeout options in my area are pretty paltry. Plus, who can afford takeout all the time? Not me. With Tavola, we get restaurant-quality meals without the hassle. I have been impressed with every single Tavala meal. Nothing is pre-cooked, so your food is fresh-tasting and never overdone. My son loves the crispy chicken pot sticker bowl and, honestly, anything with steak. This week, I got cacio e pepe and creamy Tuscan salmon. So delicious. And we get our meals delivered on Fridays, so weekend meals are a breeze. Plus, Tavola Smart Ovens works for pretty much all your cooking needs. It bakes, broils, toasts, and steams. For a limited time, because you're a strange and unexplained listener, you can save up to $300 on the Tavola Smart Oven when you order meals 6+ times by heading to Tavala.com/strange and use my code STRANGE. That's up to $300 off when you head to Tavala.com/strange and use promo code STRANGE. One last time, that's TOVALA.com, and make sure you use my promo code STRANGE for up to $300 off the Tavala Smart Oven. Remember, with Tavala, dinner is taken care of. It was around this time that candles started lighting on their own with no one around. Debra admonished Sallie and told her playing with fire was dangerous. Also, apparently they kept their candles wrapped in plastic so they wouldn't get dusty. Look, life is short. Light the candles. Anyway, Debra claims that there was an inexplicable, fuzzy, blurry thing that kept showing up in pictures of Taylor or the nursery. She says she thought it was Sallie, either trying to protect the baby from friends or family that she didn't like, for whatever reason, or just wanting to be included in the loving family unit. Barbara, the psychic, Tony's brother's boss's sister, arrived at the Pickman home on July 29th, around 8:30 p.m. She told the Pickmans she didn't want to know about anything they'd experienced, though I'm pretty sure they'd already given her a rundown on the phone after Sallie had scratched the shit out of Tony. Going through the house, Barbara said she felt a, quote, really heavy, smothering feeling in her chest, as if she were short of breath. She told Sallie she didn't need to be scared, that she wasn't there to hurt her, and the feeling lifted. Barbara then began answering the Pickmans' questions either for Sallie or as Sallie, I guess using the voice of a small girl? She told the Pickmans that Sallie died from something involving a toothache and an injured hand? Listen, I'm no doctor, but what? Sallie, through Barbara, told the Pickmans they were too bossy and had too many rules. I mean, I think not lighting candles and leaving the baby alone, especially when he was sleeping, aren't unreasonable requests. Apparently, Taylor had woken up a bunch in the middle of the night, and Debra had decided it was because of the ghost. Maybe, Debra said, Taylor was at a high risk for SIDS, and Sallie was saving his life every time she woke him up. I mean, maybe. Or maybe it was that Taylor was an infant, and infants are notoriously bad sleepers. Barbara suggested that they get Sallie a doll to try to loosen her attachment to the baby. She told them that men made Sallie uneasy. Girl, same. Which may have been why she attacked Tony. Speaking of Tony, he was apparently not amused by any of this. He felt super uncomfortable about the whole thing. He was not interested in trying to communicate with Sallie. I'm sure the idea of getting a dolly for a bratty little invisible ghost girl who'd scratch the shit out of him wasn't his favorite. Be that as it may, however, Tony revealed that he had had a dream the night before in which he saw Sallie. He drew her, and Barbara confirmed it looked just like Sallie. So now Barbara could see Sallie, I guess, and not just feel her presence or whatever. Based on the clothes Tony drew the girl in, they decided she must have died in the 1930s or 40s. Debra continued to take pictures, and weird anomalies kept showing up in them. White or blue, mostly opaque blotches, things that I guess at least Debra thought couldn't be explained away, though it seems Tony was more ready to believe something was wrong with the film than that ghosts were showing up in the pictures. I looked at the pictures, and the anomalies look like mistakes in the developing process or just shadows. But you know me, stranger, I'm just a cynical old coot. I guess there were enough messed up photos that Debra got spooked and decided that Sallie was pissed because all the toys they'd given her were hand-me-downs. So, she later wrote, quote, George and I bought a new doll and some wrapping paper. I feel a gift should always be wrapped. I gathered a number of things to create Sallie's own space and a place for her things. I dug out a Cabbage Patch doll that was special to me and a fancy old dress. I found a hat, beads, barrettes, a baby bottle, a rattle, and a few other things and placed them all in a large burgundy file box I had bought that morning. I did this in part so that she had a place to contain her treasures and partly to hide the things from people who might otherwise find them out of place in our son's room. End quote. Because Lord knows, dolls would be totally out of place in a baby boy's room. They left the package in the nursery with a note that read, quote, To Sallie, we all love you and hope you like your new baby doll. Love Uncle George, Daddy, Mommy, and Taylor. End quote. This was all, by the way, over the objections of Daddy Tony, who thought it was way too much. Agreed. About a week later, they found the new doll sitting in the middle of Taylor's crib, but the burgundy file box it had been in was still wrapped. Debra claims to have inspected it and found that it had clearly been rewrapped because it was not wrapped the way she'd wrapped it. Also, the box was now empty. Tony's mother, who apparently doesn't have a name, I guess, was visiting when she heard Taylor cry out in pain from his crib upstairs. She ran upstairs, scooped the baby up, and yelled, "Sallie, if you hurt this baby again, I'm going to spank your butt." Okay, now that I'd like to see. Good luck, lady. Apparently, Debra was worried that Sallie would be pissed at having been yelled at. So now she's letting a 7-year-old ghost run amok because she's worried about hurting her feelings? But now Tony, who still was not on board with the whole talking to the ghost girl thing, had to buckle because moments after taking Taylor from his mother, the glass globe from a lamp came flying at him from across the room. He told Debra she had to do something about Sallie. Debra scolded her and sent her to her room. This ghost just did something to make your baby cry, and your solution is to send her to the room you're letting her share with said baby? This is when you call a priest. Less than 2 weeks after that, George, who was staying over for some reason, was awoken by a soft thump on his chest. He assumed it was one of the cats, but when he opened his eyes, the teddy bear that had twirled itself around when Tony took a picture of it was sitting there on his chest, blankly staring back at him. When the Pickmans threw a party, Debra spent the evening entreating Sallie to show them she was there. Everyone got a thrill when a crayon moved a tiny bit by itself and lights turned themselves on and off. Must have been a pretty low bar for entertainment. Strangers, 3-Day Blinds is back. We just redid our kitchen, and it's definitely time for new window shades to go with the brighter look. But what do I look like? A handyman? No. Even my handyman husband isn't about to take on the job of measuring and hanging new blinds. We're going with 3-Day Blinds. The expert team at 3-Day Blinds handles all the heavy lifting. They design, measure, and install so you can sit back, relax, and leave it to the pros. We can shop for almost anything at home. Why not shop for blinds at home, too? 3-Day Blinds has local, professionally trained design consultants who have an average of 10+ years of experience that provide expert guidance on the right blinds for you in the comfort of your home. Just set up an appointment and you'll get a free, no-obligation quote the same day. With 3-Day Blinds, you choose from thousands of options that fit any budget or style. Plus, from light filtering and blackout blinds to motorization and smart blinds that work with Alexa, 3-Day Blinds is a real upgrade to your home, not just a replacement. 3-Day Blinds has been in business for over 45 years, and they have helped over 2 million people get the window treatments of their dreams, so they're a brand you can trust. Right now, get quality window treatments that fit your budget with 3-Day Blinds. Head to 3dayblinds.com/strange for their buy one, get one 50% off deal on custom blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery. For a free, no-charge, no-obligation consultation, just head to 3dayblinds.com/strange. One last time, that's buy one, get one 50% off when you head to the number 3, dayblinds.com/strange. By September, Sallie was messing with the candles again. This time, though, instead of lighting them, she was just somehow melting the wax underneath the plastic wrap. I mean, it's possible someone at the party held a lighter close enough to the candles to melt the wax but not burn the plastic, and the Pickmans just didn't notice for a few weeks. Or Sallie was really bored and used her supernatural powers to melt the wax underneath the plastic because that sounds like fun. Apparently now, Debra was inviting Sallie to cuddle with her in bed. Tony worked nights, and I guess Debra was lonely, and cuddling with her infant wasn't satisfying enough. She wrote, quote, "At 1:30 a.m., I was in bed, stretched out on my left side, with my left arm stretched across the bed. I suddenly felt a very cold sensation on that arm and on the front of my upper torso. I knew the parts of me that were feeling cold were the same parts someone would touch if cuddled right next to me. The cold feeling did not encompass my whole body, just my front side. It was a coldness I was familiar with. I felt it was Sallie." End quote. Okay. At the tail end of September, Tony apparently didn't realize one of their kittens was in the dryer when he turned it on. The stereo and vacuum kept turning on and off while the dryer was going, and in retrospect, Tony thought perhaps Sallie had been trying to get his attention about the poor cat in the dryer. The cat didn't survive. Sallie had other ways of getting Tony's attention, too. She had apparently developed a habit of biting his toes. He felt it in bed, at the dinner table, and while watching TV. Tony was telling Debra about this one evening on the couch, and when Debra got up to go take a shower, Tony cried out, "Ow, damn it!" Debra found what looked like fresh bite marks, quote, not in a place that Tony would have been able to reach himself. So, I guess not on his toes? Debra then says, quote, "I enlisted my self-control and firmly told Sallie that what she did wasn't nice, and although it was okay to play with Daddy, she had played too rough and hurt him." With that said, Tony pulled up his pants and walked away looking dejected and frustrated. The next day, the teeth marks had disappeared, but a large bruise the size of a baseball was clearly visible, end quote. Okay, so definitely not on his toes. Is it possible Tony was having a dalliance with someone who liked to bite and conveniently had a ghost to blame it on? And then, on Halloween, Tony came face to face with the little biting menace in their kitchen. Quote, standing in the middle of the room just past the butcher block table was a little girl with a surprised look in her big blue eyes. He judged her to be about 3.5 feet tall. Instantly, his heart plummeted to his feet and every muscle froze. In that instant, several things went through his mind. Who are you? Where did you come from? What do you want? And how did you get into my kitchen? Then he realized he had not heard either of the doors and that she had not walked in with him, end quote. The girl was dressed like the one he'd seen in his dream, standing there, in his kitchen, staring at him. Whoever, or whatever it was, no, thank you. Not today, Bob. I suppose Tony should have thanked his lucky stars that this little girl just stood there staring at him because things were about to get much, much worse. Next time on Strange and Unexplained, things inside the Pickman home get truly out of hand when one family's paranormal nightmare becomes a voyeuristic moneymaker. Strange and Unexplained is a production of Three Goose Entertainment and Grab Bag Collab. This episode was written by me, Daisy Egan, with research by Joe Gradette. Editorial help by Becca D. Gregorio. Audio engineering and design by the divine Jeff Devine. Music by Epidemic and Blue Dot Sessions. If you have an idea for an episode or want to submit a question for an Ask Me Anything episode, head to strangeandunexplainedpod.com and fill out the contact form. I will write back. Eventually. I need an assistant. You can follow me on social media at Daisy Egan or follow the show at SNU Pod and Grab Bag Collab. Stay strange.